What if a single cry in a raging blizzard could change your life forever? Jack Monroe was a man forged in the crucible of loss and labor. At 38, his hands were etched with the story of a carpenter's life. Calluses from swinging axes, scars from errant nails, burns from late nights soldering in his workshop. His hazel eyes, framed by a beard streaked with premature gray, held a quiet resilience, but also a shadow that lingered since his wife, Sarah, died 4 years ago. Her car had skidded on an icy mountain road, leaving Jack to raise their daughter, Lily, alone in a world that felt colder ever after. Lily, now 8, was a burst of light. Her mother's curly brown hair, her father's stubborn streak, and a laugh that could thaw the frostiest dawn. Their cabin, tucked in a remote Colorado Valley 15 miles from the nearest town, was a fortress Jack had built log by log, a sanctuary against a world that took too much. But this blizzard, the worst in decades, was a force no walls could tame. It snapped power lines, buried roads, and left them isolated, with only a faltering generator between them and the freezing dark. That night, Jack trudged out to check the generator, its hum stuttering under the storm's weight. Snow stung his face, piling up to his thighs as he fought through the drifts. His flashlight beam danced wildly, catching a shape near the tree line, something too still, half swallowed by a snowbank. He thought it was a deer, felled by the cold. But as he stumbled closer, the light revealed a woman, her face pale as death, lips blue, dark hair frozen into icy strands. She wore a thin wool coat, dress shoes crusted with frost, and no gloves, clothes for a city boardroom, not a mountain storm. Her body shook with violent shivers, her breath a faint wisp in the air. "Hey, stay with me," Jack shouted, his voice nearly lost in the gale. Her eyes fluttered, unfocused, and she mumbled something incoherent. He scooped her up. She was lighter than he expected, frail beneath her soaked layers, and carried her back to the cabin, kicking the door shut against the storm. Inside, he laid her on the couch by the fire, piling blankets over her trembling form. Lily's voice drifted from upstairs, sleepy but alarmed. "Daddy? What's happening?" "Stay in bed, sweetheart," he called, forcing calm into his voice despite the adrenaline flooding him. He boiled water, stoked the fire, and checked her pulse, weak but steady. Who was she? How had she ended up here, miles from any road, dressed like she'd fled a high-rise? And what had driven her into this frozen nightmare? By midnight, the woman stirred, her shivers easing as the fire's warmth took hold. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft but polished, with an accent that hinted at wealth, East Coast elite, perhaps, with a Western undertone, like someone who'd straddled two worlds. "I'm Emily." She clutched the mug of tea Jack handed her, her fingers raw and trembling. "My car, it slid off the road down the mountain. I got lost." Jack nodded, his instincts torn between caution and compassion. He wasn't one to pry when survival was the priority. He gave her dry clothes, Sarah's old flannel shirts, wool socks, and a sweater still carrying the faint scent of lavender from a life before grief. The act of pulling them from the drawer stirred memories he'd buried, but he pushed them aside. Lily, unable to resist, crept downstairs, her eyes wide with wonder. "Is she a snow princess, Daddy?" Emily's lips curved into a faint smile, her green eyes softening. "Not quite, little one, just a bit frozen." Over the next few hours, as the storm sealed them in with drifts climbing the windows, Emily came alive in small ways. She sat with Lily by the fire, helping her color pictures of horses galloping across starry plains. Her stories were vivid, castles in far-off lands, midnight rides under endless skies, a childhood filled with adventure but tinged with control. Jack, stirring soup in the kitchen, felt a pang he hadn't expected. The cabin hadn't echoed with this kind of warmth since Sarah. It wasn't just Lily's laughter, it was the way Emily listened, her attention making the girl glow like she'd found a new sun. The first day was a fight for survival. The power was out, the radio crackling with grim updates, roads impassable, emergency services overwhelmed. They were trapped, possibly for days. Jack shoveled a path to the woodpile, the cold biting his lungs. Emily insisted on helping, bundling up in Sarah's oversized coat and boots that slipped on the ice. "I'm not here to be a guest," she said, her breath clouding the air. She was clumsy at first, unused to the labor, but her determination impressed him. When the generator sputtered and died that afternoon, plunging the cabin into shadow, Emily knelt beside it without hesitation. "Fuel lines frozen," she said, her chipped nails tracing the pipes. "Pass me that wrench." Jack handed it over, watching as she worked with a precision that didn't match her polished exterior. In minutes, the machine roared back to life. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked, wiping grease from his hands. "My father," she replied, her voice catching. "He loved machines. Taught me when I was younger than Lily." There was grief there, raw and familiar, a mirror to Jack's own. He didn't press, but he noticed the details. Her flinch when her phone buzzed in her coat pocket, silenced without a glance. The faint bruise on her wrist, revealed when her sleeve slipped, a mark like someone had grabbed her too hard. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his tone light. She nodded too quickly. "Family drama. It'll pass." But her eyes darted to the window, scanning the endless white, and Jack knew she was running from more than the storm. The second day brought a deceptive calm. The snow slowed, but the drifts were too deep for escape. Jack took Lily and Emily outside to build snowmen, their laughter ringing through the pines. Lily, bundled in her red parka, taught Emily how to pack snow just right. "Squish it hard," she giggled, her mittens caked with frost. Emily, her cheeks flushed, joined in, her movements growing surer. For a moment, they were just three people in a frozen world, the danger outside forgotten. Back inside, Lily dragged Emily into her world. Storybooks, crayons, and endless questions. "Do you have a pony? Do you like dragons?" Emily answered each with patience, her stories growing richer. Sneaking into her father's library to read forbidden books, riding horses at dawn across a ranch that stretched beyond the horizon. "You're a dreamer, Lily," she said, braiding the girl's hair by the fire. "Like I was. Never let that go." Jack watched from the doorway, his chest tightening. He'd built walls around his heart after Sarah, focusing only on Lily. But Emily's presence, her quiet strength, her ease with his daughter, cracked those walls. That evening, as Lily napped, they sat by the fire, sharing fragments of their lives. Jack spoke of Sarah, the accident, the way grief had carved him hollow. "I keep things simple now," he said, staring into the flames. "Safe. For Lily." Emily nodded, her gaze distant. "I envy simple. My life, it's been a gilded cage." She spoke of a childhood on a sprawling ranch, surrounded by wealth but suffocated by expectations. "My father was my anchor. He died last month, heart attack, they said. Everything fell apart after that." Her voice broke, and she shifted topics, asking about Jack's carpentry. He showed her the toys he'd carved for Lily. Wooden horses with flowing manes, tiny cabins with hinged doors, a miniature barn etched with stars. Emily traced one, her fingers lingering. "These are art, Jack. You could sell them in Denver, even New York. People crave this kind of soul." He chuckled, deflecting. "Just a hobby." But her words stirred a spark, a dream he'd buried when survival became his only goal. She saw something in him, and it felt like sunlight after years of shadow. That night, Emily's phone rang again, relentless. She stepped outside, her voice sharp through the door. "Not signing anything, you can't control me." Jack caught fragments, his gut tightening. When she returned, her face was pale, eyes red-rimmed. "Trouble?" he asked gently. "Family," she said, forcing a smile. "Always is." Lily, sensing the shift, hugged her tightly, pulling her into a game of checkers. Emily's laughter returned, but Jack saw the strain in her eyes. He wanted to ask more, but trust held him back, or maybe fear of what her answers might mean. The third day stretched on, the storm's grip unrelenting. Jack taught Emily how to chop wood, her swings awkward but determined. "You're a quick learner," he said, steadying the axe. She grinned, but her eyes kept flicking to the horizon, as if expecting something to emerge from the snow. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she answered in the kitchen, her voice low. "Stop calling. I'm not that girl anymore," Jack overheard, his unease growing. The bruise on her wrist, the calls, her polished, yet guarded demeanor. It all pointed to a life she was fleeing. That afternoon, they baked bread together, Lily giggling as flour dusted Emily's hair. "You look like a ghost," she teased. Emily laughed, but Jack caught her rubbing her wrist again, the bruise darker now in the firelight. "Old injury?" he asked, keeping his tone light. She hesitated, her eyes flickering with something like fear. Something like that. Her gaze met his, and for a moment, he thought she'd say more. But Lily's chatter pulled her back, and the moment passed. As night fell, Jack found Emily staring out the window, her phone silent but clutched tightly. "You don't have to tell me," he said quietly. "But if you're in trouble, I can help." She turned, her expression raw. "You're already helping, Jack. More than you know." Her voice held gratitude, but also a fear that made his protective instincts flare. He wanted to press, but the weight of her words stopped him. Whatever she was running from, it was bigger than this cabin, bigger than the storm. On the fourth day, the storm showed signs of weakening, but the isolation deepened. The radio crackled with faint hope. Road crews were working, but the mountain passes remained blocked. Jack and Emily took turns shoveling, their breaths fogging the air. Lily, restless, begged for stories, and Emily obliged, spinning tales of her childhood, sneaking apples to horses, hiding in haylofts to escape her uncle's lectures. But the stories always trailed off, as if she couldn't bear to linger on the memories. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Emily's phone rang again. She ignored it, but Jack saw her hands tremble. "You can tell me," he said, his voice soft but firm. "Whatever it is, I'm here." She looked at him, her eyes searching his. For a moment, she seemed to teeter on the edge of confession. Then Lily stirred, asking for a bedtime story, and Emily slipped back into her role, her secrets locked away. But later, as Jack checked the generator, he found her outside, staring at the stars breaking through the clouds. "My father taught me to find Orion," she said, her voice barely audible. "He said it would always guide me home. But I don't know where home is anymore." Jack stood beside her, the cold biting his face. "You're here now. That's enough for tonight." She nodded, but her eyes were haunted, and Jack knew. Her past was catching up. On the fifth day, the storm's ferocity waned, but the tension in the cabin grew. Emily's phone buzzed incessantly, and she finally turned it off, her hands shaking. Jack caught her staring at an old photo she'd pulled from her coat, a man with her green eyes, smiling beside a young Emily on a horse. "Your dad?" Jack asked. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "He was everything to me. He died and I found things. Things I wasn't supposed to know." She didn't elaborate, but the weight of her words hung heavy. Jack wanted to push, but Lily's laughter from the living room pulled them back, a reminder of the fragile normalcy they'd built. That afternoon, they played cards, Lily teaching Emily her own made-up rules. But the game was interrupted by a faint sound, a low hum, like engines in the distance. Jack's gut tightened. "Stay here," he told them, grabbing his rifle and stepping outside. The snow was still deep, but tire tracks marked the road, a sign someone had been close. He didn't tell Emily, not wanting to scare her, but the unease settled deeper. On the sixth morning, the storm finally broke. Blue skies pierced the clouds, and the radio announced road crews were clearing paths. Jack shoveled the driveway, his muscles screaming from days of labor. Emily helped, her silence heavier now. "I need to leave soon," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've done too much already." "You're not a burden," Jack said, his words firm. Lily, overhearing, ran out, her boots sinking in the snow. "No, Emily. Stay. We can build a snow fort." Emily knelt, hugging her tightly. "Soon, sweetie. I promise." Her eyes met Jack's, holding a plea he couldn't decipher. Hope, fear, or both. Then engines roared. A convoy of black SUVs tore up the freshly plowed road, tires crunching snow. Men in tailored coats and cowboy hats stepped out, their faces hard and cold. The leader, a burly man with a mustache and a gold watch glinting in the sun, approached. "Mr. Monroe? Harlan Price. We're here for Emily Price." Jack's jaw clenched. "Price? As in Price Ranching Empire?" Harlan nodded, pulling out a thick envelope. 50,000 for your trouble. She's family. He turned to Emily, his voice like ice. Niece, the board meets in 2 days. Sign the papers or lose everything. Emily stepped forward, her posture rigid. I'm not going, Uncle Harlan. I told you I'm done. Harlan's smile was venomous. Your father's will is clear. You give up your 51% stake, or we take it. Don't make this ugly. Jack moved between them, his voice low but firm. She said no. Leave. The men tensed, hands brushing coats where bulges hinted at weapons. Lily peeked from the door, her eyes wide with fear. Emily turned to Jack, her words urgent. Jack, they're not bluffing. My father died last month, supposedly a heart attack. He left me control of the Price ranching empire, but my uncles want it. I've been hiding because I found proof they've been embezzling millions for years. If I go with them, I'm dead. But if you and Lily come with me to Denver to fight this, we can win. I'll keep you both safe. Jack's mind spun. Uproot Lily? Step into a world of wealth and danger? But as Harlan's men loomed, he overheard a whisper. Accident like her father, the truth slammed into him. Emily's father was murdered. We're with you, Jack said, his voice steady despite the fear coiling in his gut. Lily clung to his hand, and Emily's eyes shone with relief and resolve. Harlan's face twisted. Big mistake, Monroe. As the SUVs peeled out, one man lingered, muttering to Harlan. Jack caught the words, clean it up, no witnesses. They fled in Emily's rental car, hidden in a ravine down the mountain. Lily, buckled in the back, clutched her stuffed rabbit, her voice trembling. Is this an adventure, Daddy? Something like that, kiddo, Jack replied, his hands tight on the wheel. Emily explained as they drove. Her father's will gave her 51% of the empire, but her uncles had bribed lawyers to challenge it. She'd found emails proving they'd poisoned him with tainted supplements, disguised as a heart attack. The proof's on this drive, she said, tapping her coat. But they know I have it. That bruise? From the funeral, when Harlan grabbed me. They've been tracking me since. In Denver, they checked into a rundown motel, Emily's contacts arranging a lawyer and a journalist named Maria. But the uncles moved faster. That night, a delivery arrived, a package that ticked ominously. Jack grabbed Lily and Emily, bolting outside as sirens wailed. They're trying to kill us, Emily whispered, her voice shaking. They won't stop. Jack's resolve hardened. Then we don't hide. We fight. They spent the night compiling evidence, Jack keeping watch with his old hunting rifle. Lily drew pictures of the three of them, her crayons a small act of defiance against the fear. Maria arrived at dawn, promising to break the story. This goes live tomorrow, she said. But you need to survive until then. The next day, they moved to a safe house Maria arranged, a cramped apartment in a forgotten corner of Denver. But Harlan's reach was long. A car tailed them, its tinted windows hiding familiar faces. Jack swerved through backstreets, losing the pursuer in a maze of alleys. Lily whimpered, and Emily held her hand, whispering stories to keep her calm. We're knights, Lily, brave and strong. That night, Jack found Emily poring over her father's old journal, tears staining the pages. He knew they were after him, she said. He wrote here, warnings about Harlan and Lydia. He trusted me to fix this. Jack sat beside her, his hand brushing hers. You will. We will. The board meeting at Price Tower was a war zone of glass and steel. Jack, in a borrowed suit, felt like an imposter among the corporate elite. Emily stood tall, presenting her evidence, emails, bank records, a toxicology report she'd funded in secret. Harlan scoffed, fabrications. But as security moved in, Jack recognized one, the delivery man from the motel. It's a setup, he shouted. Chaos erupted. Harlan lunged for the drive, but Jack tackled him, his carpenter's strength overpowering the older man. Papers flew, glass shattered. Emily activated a hidden recorder, capturing Harlan's snarl. We did what we had to. The company's ours. The board froze, security hesitating. Then, the deeper truth unfolded. Harlan wasn't the mastermind. Aunt Lydia, silent in her tailored suit, had orchestrated all, poisoning her brother, manipulating the board, even planting the bomb scare. Emily's recovered files, pulled from deleted servers, exposed her. Lydia's composure cracked as she screamed. He was weak. The Empire deserved better. Police swarmed, cuffs snapping on her wrists. But the danger wasn't over. As they left the tower, a black SUV rammed their car in the parking garage. Jack floored the gas, tires screeching as he weaved through concrete pillars. Lily screamed, and Emily clutched the drive, shouting directions. They escaped onto the highway, but the SUV followed, relentless. Maria's story hit the internet mid-chase, naming Harlan and Lydia. News vans appeared, cameras flashing, and the SUV vanished into the chaos, its drivers exposed. Spring arrived, melting snow into rivers that fed the Price Ranch. Jack and Lily moved there, not as outsiders, but as family. Emily and Jack's bond grew, slow, authentic, rooted in shared survival. He opened a carpentry shop on the ranch, teaching hands to carve beauty from wood. Emily reformed the empire, redirecting profits to sustainable ranching and community programs. Lily, now 9, thrived, her drawings now of a family, 3 figures under a wide, starry sky, with horses galloping free. One evening, under the pines where Jack had found her, he knelt, a carved wooden ring in his hand. It was etched with tiny stars, a nod to her father's Orion. You didn't just survive the storm, Emily. You brought us back to life. Marry me. Lily, clutching wildflower she'd picked, squealed as Emily said yes, tears streaming down her face. The moment was theirs, fragile, fierce, real. But the true closure came months later, on a quiet night by a new fire. Emily handed Jack a letter from her father, found in a hidden safe. To my daughter, it read, choose your path. Love without fear. Trust the man who stands by you not for wealth, but for you. You are my legacy. Jack's throat tightened, Sarah's memory whispering alongside. Live, Jack. For her. For you. He'd saved Emily, but she'd saved him, from a life of mere survival, from a heart locked in grief. Lily slept between them, her breath soft, her hand clutching Emily's scarf. Jack held Emily's hand, the fire's warmth mingling with the spring breeze. The storm had taken much, his solitude, his fear, but it had given more, a family reborn, a future carved not from wood, but from love and truth. As the stars burned above, brighter than Orion, Jack knew they'd face any storm, together. And in that moment, he felt Sarah's smile, a quiet blessing from the past, urging him forward into a life fully lived.